Hi, welcome to this week's edition of PHQ, questions from the personality hacker community. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And Addison, let's get right to our question today.
Hi there, my name is Richard and I'm emailing you from the UK. I came across your website a few months ago and I very much enjoyed your podcast series and the thoughts that they have provoked. I've become more knowledgeable and I've learned a huge amount, and yet I'm more confused than ever about my own type. I've self-typed as an INTP, INFP, INFJ, ENTP, ENFP, INTJ, and even an ISFP for one mad afternoon. The online tests are no help either, as it gets to a point where one can see through them quite easily and unconsciously self-select into particular categories. In a recent podcast, I believe that Antonia said, when you come across a type description that makes you feel relieved, then that's your type. Once again, self-doubt precludes this, as so many descriptions have felt right until I read the next one, which leads me to the main point of this email. Again, in a recent podcast, you mentioned that one goes into flow when one is utilizing one's driver function, and that one could develop different functions by partaking in different activities. It has occurred to me that one could reverse engineer this idea. By partaking in different activities and observing one's enjoyment or skill or flow, one could discover personal preferences regarding the utilization of different cognitive functions, and from that infer a type. To that end, I was wondering if you could recommend activities that correspond to the 8 cognitive functions. For example, what could one do to exercise TE? Or how would one best manifest SI? Thanks for reading, and I hope that this has been of interest. I look forward to hearing from you. Perhaps it may shed some light on my dilemma, or perhaps it may provide another intriguing tunnel to jump down. Cheers, Richard.
Thanks, Richard, for the question. Yes, the short answer is yes. You can reverse engineer things in the system. In fact, that's basically what our 40-plus session big profiler training certification course is around, is how to go both directions. Take a four-letter code and find the cognitive functions, or determine someone's cognitive functions and then reverse engineer their code. That's what we teach our students, and that's what we do all the time when we're doing live profiling or consulting or coaching. We are basically reverse engineering forward and backward the entire system to find out what personality type somebody is.
What's challenging about this question is there's 8 cognitive functions and there's literally limitless activities on the planet. So there is no such thing, I don't think, as a short list of flow states for each cognitive function. It's definitely a doable, reverse engineering project, and yet it's not really something I think that we could answer exhaustively on a PHQ. We just simply don't have time. I mean, this is a rabbit's trail that doesn't end. We're still going down this rabbit's trail. Like, this is the rabbit's trail we've been on this for years and years. And we haven't found the end of it yet, because there's so many different activities that could correlate to these cognitive functions or these mental processes and create flow. So unfortunately, this is not going to be as helpful as I think that you were hoping it would be. But I will say this. Reverse engineer it for yourself. Start writing down activities that you're engaged in when you enter flow. When you are doing things that feel so good that you're losing track of time, that you're just enjoying them like crazy, that you always go away, even if you're physically tired, you always go away feeling refreshed. Start taking notes. Start going, okay, so, this might not be you, it could be somebody else, but, like when I'm engaged in really great, high quality, cross-pollinating conversation, that's one of my flow states. Whenever I'm hanging out with friends and we're having like super deep pattern recognition conversations where we're talking about the life, the universe, and everything, no question that's a flow state. So I'd write that down, like conversation with friends specifically about certain topics or certain styles of topics. When I'm video gaming, right? When I'm gaming, that's a flow state for me. I can play stealth games, right? Eternally. But I'm not necessarily in a flow state when I'm playing, say, real-time strategy games. That's not very interesting to me. So if I were to write down gaming, I'd try to get as specific as possible, and I'd say, gaming, first-person stealth. So do this for yourself. Really observe the time periods where you're massively in flow and be as specific as possible. And then once you've got a list of things that are putting you specifically in flow, now match them to the specific cognitive functions by finding really good type descriptions online. So there's, if you put in Jungian cognitive functions in a Google search engine, you're going to find, descriptions of these cognitive functions all over. At personalityhacker.com, we have, descriptions of the cognitive functions on there on the blog. We call them our specific nicknames. So we have an article on effectiveness, and we have one on authenticity. We have one on harmony, on accuracy, etc. So go find those descriptions and then try to figure out if the activities you're doing matches one of those. And that's the direction I'd go for you. It's easier to get really specific about what you're doing and then finding a function that matches those flow states than getting sort of this list of possible flow states and then sort of, figuring out where you might fit. I think it's better to go specific with you and then match as opposed to going over general and then trying to fit yourself into, some of these descriptions.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a really quick comment for anybody who's dealing with this, not just Richard, and this of course extends to Richard as well, but if anybody is dealing with this, if you are trying to figure out your type and you're just not, like you said, there's every possible intuitive type and then one mad afternoon you're an ISFP. We do have a service we provide called profiler verification. And that is you get on the phone with myself or one of our certified profilers, and we do a verification on you, which is about a 60 to 90 minute process where we go through a live profiling session. We ask you a series of questions. We really try to get into, the programming of your mind. And then at the end of it, you get a definitive type. And it's no longer a big question in your mind. The profile verification is a service we provide. And then you also get thrown in with it, as a bonus, you get the personality development starter kit. So that's something if it's just driving you mad, if it's a burr under your saddle, you can't figure out what's going on, please feel free to shoot us an email and go, how do I get a profile verification session going? And then we can talk about whether or not it's a service that matches your needs at this time. One thing I'd recommend for you, Richard, is possibly going down the rabbit's trail of the authenticity process. Authenticity is the cognitive function that's technically called introverted feeling. And my observation has been that the one function that has a tendency to see themselves in most of the other types is introverted feeling. It's a very introspective process. You see so many different components of who you are inside of yourself that you have difficulty not resonating with a good description of all the other types. This is actually one of the reasons why authenticity people, or the feeler perceivers in the Myers-Briggs system, this is one of the reasons why they have a tendency to not like profiling, or they don't like personality typology systems, because they can actually see themselves in most of the descriptions. And that's because they're very introspective. They see many different shades of who they are, and they kind of resonate with pretty much every description. This could be why for one mad afternoon you were an ISFP, because ISFPs lead with introverted feeling. They lead with authenticity. So for you specifically, I don't want to say definitively you're any specific type. I'd have to do a profile verification session with you before I would know definitively. And that said, I kind of want to encourage you or nudge you over to looking for really good descriptions of the feeler perceiver types. If you're mostly resonating with intuitive styles and it was only one sensory style, you're probably intuitive. So that leads us to NFP, and start looking for really good descriptions of INFPs and ENFPs and see if one of them really lands for you.
Thanks, Richard, for the question. And if you would like to ask your own question, you can find the way to do that at personalityhacker.com. You can be featured on the PHQ show, where we get questions from the community and we answer them live on the air. You can also join the discussion that's happening over at facebook.com/personalityhacker or twitter.com/personalityhack. We also have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/personalityhacker, where we dive into each of the different types. So that could be a great resource as well. If you're determining which type you might be, watching several of the different videos of the tiebreakers that you're down to, it may help you get some insight into which type you may be. And ultimately, if you take the test and get the starter kit, the personality development starter kit, that's one of the best ways to do that. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Thanks for being with us on PHQ, questions from the personality hacker community. We will talk to you on the next episode.